Nice to meet all of you. Oh, we're live. Okay, it's over. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It's June, it's the start of summer, and it's Pride Month. And we're very excited today to be talking about parenting with pride with our awesome guests. And before I get started, I just want to take a moment to hold deep gratitude, appreciation, and respect to the Coast Salish Nation and the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, on whose traditional land we are residing on. My name is Mary. I am a lactation peer counselor at Open Arms, supporting all lactating people and with a particular focus on our Pacific Islander communities. And with me co-hosting is the awesome Mia.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mia. I'm with the Pacific Islander Health Board. And then what we can do is we'll go around and have everybody introduce themselves. I will start with Uncle John.
Hello, my name is Johnny Smith. This is my husband, William Sims, Bill Sims. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Would you like to go next?
Sweet. Hi, I'm Joey Francisco-Calvo. I'm here with my husband, Damien Francisco-Calvo.
Hi.
And our little boy, Caleb.
Awesome. And then Vanessa.
Hello, my name is Vanessa Love-Bergeron. As you know, my pronouns are she, her, Sheila, which is the non-gendered pronoun in Tagalog. Happy to be here. And my wife and our kids are in the pool right now. We're at a hotel, so they will join us eventually. They'll pop in and do their ridiculous. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you all for taking your time to be here and talk story with us. We all just did a brief introduction, but I kind of like a good origin story. If you wouldn't mind just introducing us, or if you don't mind sharing, I'm curious how your origin story started and how you met with your partners and started your families. Vanessa, would you like to go first?
Sure, I would love to go first. We met in 2004, and there were dating apps back then, but I think it was only like Match.com, and like not a lot, right? And we actually met through friends at a party, we were both in our early to mid 20s, and yeah, it was, and she describes it best because she said she saw me and I had long hair, and she was like,
"Oh no, we kind of lost you on the audio."
Sorry.
Uh-oh.
There you are. But yeah, we kind of had that fumble of like, oh, do you want to be friends? Is this a date? Or are we just hanging out? Like, we went back and forth like that for about a month before we realized, oh, she really likes me. And then, we were dating and we got engaged a year later and, had the marriage ceremony, that kind of thing. And that was in 2006. and I think it was in 2007 where the state of California, I don't remember which prop it was, but it was like the voters denied that, the marriage equality, and that was really heartbreaking. But in our hearts, in our communities, in our families, like we were still married. And then a couple years later, in 2008, we were able to go to City Hall and get that marriage certificate. So one of the things that when you have, like, you look around, and I remember going into the grocery store and I'm like, who voted against this? I'm so angry.
Uh-oh.
I'm so
I think
angry
she's
because
breaking up.
it's a trans
I think so.
women who
Okay.
um,
Hold on. I'm gonna see if we can get her to reconnect. But in the meantime, would anybody else like to go next?
So we met in '99. Weird story for me and Bill was dating for us was kind of inside joke. He'd never had a boyfriend before, love before. I was his first boyfriend, so weird predicament. But funny thing was, he always wanted to have kids, and our inside joke was, "Wow, I can't give you no kids." I can't get pregnant and have no kids for you, so I don't know what to do for you. Jokingly, of course. And happy enough, we adopted my grandson, who was 2 weeks old. And, be careful what you ask for is what we always say, because you wanted a child, and here's this beautiful 2-week-old child that we raised. Kevin, right now, he's actually 15 years old. A huge blessing in our lives. To me, I always think like God has odd little tricks for you, because having Kevin, he had a brother, 2 sisters, and they had issues with their family, and we adopted all of them. So we have 2 boys and 2 girls, and I really mean this. It's just worked out perfectly. I mean, it's just been the best thing in the world for us. And I couldn't have asked for anything better. It's just, who would ever think, you're going to have your boyfriend over here for the first time, living a gay life with me, and guess what? You're going to have a family of 6 total soon. Who would ever think that, And a big blessing, a huge blessing. So, yeah. Don't you think? That's it.
we went from 1 kid to 4 kids overnight. Now we're up to 3 dogs, and it's like old Mother Hubbard in the shoe.
and just really quick here, you just have to go walk in. Look over here. And this is our oldest son, Kevin. So had this beautiful little boy here. Look at him. We've had him since 2 weeks old, and just a huge blessing. Huge blessing.
Awesome.
Welcome, Kevin. Hey.
We're getting old.
I know. So yeah, I mean, for us, issues regarding adoption for us. Of course, you want a good story to give everybody. But was it rough? Yeah, absolutely. Having CPS come to our home, and knowing that we want to adopt these kids, but then also see, where's the mother? Well, they're going to have 2 dads over here, and then you kind of see this pause. And for us, the beginning was very rough. You could honestly just tell, I don't know if I should go into full detail, but I might as well, the mother and father were on drugs and just could not care for the kids here. But yet, even though CPS knew that she wasn't able to take care of the kids, they really did want those kids to go back to her, and I kept thinking, we have a beautiful home, we have great jobs, we can take care of the kids, and they were just unable, but they still wanted these kids to go back to, you know, go back to her. But then you always think, if it was a husband and wife, would that be the same scenario? Would you still want that to happen? And honestly, in my heart, I don't think so. But all you can do is, you know, fight for what's right, which I did, you know, and work. Our oldest daughter, sorry if I'm rambling, our oldest daughter, Alana, she has no blood ties with us in regarding my son. The kids are all for my son. But as far as the mother and father go for Alana, our oldest one, who's now graduated nursing and living a good life for herself, you know, we fought for her also with her mom and dad, and we adopted her also. So it's just been a blessing for us. So yeah, everything's been working out good for us.
That's wonderful. And Shantae says a loving home is a loving home. And that's so true.
And it really is, though. I mean, I know it sounds cliche sometimes, but it really is. I mean, I think even help with the kids, I mean, what do they want? They just want you to listen to them and love them. And it produces just wealth in the family and love in the family. And it worked for us. It really did work for us. So, yeah.
So glad that it did work for you.
Us too. Us too.
The Francisco-Calvo family.
Hi. So Damien and I, we actually met in 2008, but at the time it was like, you know, he was 18. He was.
I was barely 18.
And I,
Back in 2008, our dating app was MySpace.
so we met on MySpace.
We had a mutual friend, and I was like, I saw his picture on our mutual friends page, and I said, "Oh, he's cute. You know, let me hit him up."
Yeah.
And almost 13 years later, here we are now. We have a 7-year-old son. We've been so blessed with, and it was very unexpected. But he is actually my nephew. He is my first cousin's son. So his grandmother and my mom are sisters. And us having him, it just happened. It all fell into place. It was God's plan. And
yeah, I absolutely agree with Uncle John in that God definitely has a plan, because after he and I had met, I think one of the things we talked about was, we'll get married eventually. You know, we knew it wasn't legal at the time. I was actually in the Air Force at the time, so
don't ask, don't tell was still a thing.
Don't ask, don't tell was a thing. I was stationed in Korea when we met. I moved to Vegas, PCS to Vegas, and I basically talked to him. I was like, hey, if you want to pursue this, you'd have to move out to where I'm at. And so we kind of took that leap of faith. We had been dating barely a year, I think, when we finally moved in together. And we did, so we talked about marriage. We were like, we'll eventually get married. I think at the time I was just really hung up on, I can't really, you're going to be my secret because of the military. That was in 2008. I separated from the Air Force in 2012. And the big reason why I separated was because I was tired of not being able to have him around like everybody else. So even though Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed before I separated, I still thought it was like I wasn't in the same place where I was before I met him. I was pretty much like super closeted when I first enlisted. So before I met him, I really didn't hang out with a lot of LGBTQ members. I really disassociated myself from them because I was too afraid of getting caught. I kept a very close knit of friends, pretty much three females. 2 of them were straight, 1 of them was a lesbian, and I didn't make it a point to associate with the LGBT community. So I didn't really appreciate that side of me. I met him, and he kind of introduced me to a world that was like something I had been denying myself. So before him, I was like, oh, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to have kids. None of that was something I envisioned for myself. And then when I met him, it was like, well, those are things that, may happen in the future. So one of the first things we did, we got married. And then a lot of times after we got married, I was like, okay, God, I want to have a baby. I want to raise a child with him. And And God works in mysterious ways, and He didn't give us a brand new baby. We didn't get Caleb until he was until he was 4 years old. So we've only had him a little over 3 years, but it was perfect. It happened when it was supposed to happen. The route we took was pretty traditional for where we come from, but I think a lot of it was everyone that we spoke to was super surprised at how, I think there was some questions as to, oh, how can someone give up their child? But then I always counter that with, well, if you know and you're an adult enough to know that you can't provide maybe the best, you can still provide, because Kayla's mother is an amazing mother. She just knew she couldn't give him everything he deserved, and so it was the hardest decision for her to reach out and ask us to take her child and raise him. I was absolutely scared in the beginning. I didn't want to do it. I don't know, it was new. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to be a dad. And then I thought back to those times on my drives to work where I was like, God, I really want to raise a child. And I was like, well, this is that time. This is my moment. And it's been an amazing journey since, so many ups and downs, but for the most part, it's been great. So that's kind of our story, really. We live in New Mexico now. We moved down here about 5 years ago, and we've had Caleb, like I said, for 3 of those 5 years, and it's been great. So.
It's been really amazing. It's been amazing being dads.
Yep.
Finally, I've been wanting to have a big family. Like, I wanted 6 kids, and I want to be able to sit on my porch and just watch my family, play in the yard at family reunion. That's what I really want in life. Since maybe I was 16 years old.
And your story is very much like ours. Bill, it was we didn't come out of the closet. It was here we were dating. Sadly to say, even with our son, when his mother's coming by, and we had no clue. I mean, literally, you're so cliche, like she didn't know, and she just didn't know. That was just Bill being, closeted, and I know how that is to, come out. I came out to my mom and dad, my mom, but it was very rough, it's hurtful for her. And then, of course, understanding, and I was her favorite, so eventually she's going to love me back. But it just took a little swallowing to get there, So the struggle he had, I get it. I just totally got it. And now it's a blessing. I mean, his mother is my kid's grandmother, and she literally adores our kids. And adores us and adores our lives, and I love her to death. So, yeah, everything happens for a reason. Like she said, who thinks she'd be a grandma again for 4 more kids, and she just absolutely loves it. So you can say it over and over again, blessings, blessings, and more blessings. With the Partridge family, now we had to go buy a van and everything else to fit all the kids. But is it worth it? Absolutely.
That's so beautiful. What are some ways in which our families, friends, and the communities can support LGBTQ plus families like yours as they begin parenthood or at any stage in parenthood?
I'm sorry?
So what are some ways that family and friends and communities can support the LGBTQIA communities during parenthood?
What would you say? I think a lot of it is going to be just like you would a hetero couple. With kids, you're looking at friends and family to help out with daycare, or if something comes up, you need to run to the store or whatever.
Or even answers, they're just, you're just these instant dads here. And of course, in the real world, you want to be great parents, but do you really know how to do it? You don't, and to ask people, sadly for us, it was kind of sad, was all our friends were still, having cocktails, having dinner parties, drinking wine, and just no kids. So, our kids were kind of like the first little village. Sadly, you would think there'd be all these, gay families with kids and stuff, and it just wasn't there. But your aha moments were always all your friends who were now Uncle Benny, Uncle Luis, Uncle Jim, Uncle Tommy, and they just adored the kids, you know, and you could just see where all these people would be great parents. I mean, great parents in the fact that now it's in their heads that, yeah, we would love to adopt. We would love to adopt. So I just think the fact that put a little seed in there and you guys can do it. I mean, it's becoming a thing now that now we have our friends now that do have kids. But, you know, reaching out in regards to even autism, you know, for Alex, who was really rough when he was little. I mean, he just had a lot of really bad behavioral acts, food eating, throwing food around, just being a rough child, you know. And again, when I sit there and say, listen to them and love them, I kid you not. I mean, he's the most quietest, gentlest child in the world. He's an A student. I mean, he gets on the honor roll. He's just this, turned out to be just this wonderful kid. And even when the teachers say, you know, what do you guys, what do you parents do to them? And, you know, all I can say all the time is just love them and listen to them. I mean, that's all. I mean, I really do believe that. I think that's all that kids want you to do is listen to me and love me, and I'll do everything for you. So, but reaching out to venues now, to me, still is a no. I mean, you try to reach out for help with behavioral autism or autism, period, and it's just a call back, we'll call back, we'll call back. And sadly, we just did it on our own. You know, all you can do is do all the research you can and figure out what we need to do for Alex. And yeah, well, I pat us both on the back and chest and say we did it, you know, which sounds kind of ridiculous, but we did. You know, is Alex fine? He is. Does he have a few little ticks? He does. But is it bad? No, but it just, we kind of had to help ourselves, sadly, you know, but in the long run and the end of the story, we're good. We're good. I mean, we're good.
And that really speaks to like being a good parent too, like knowing that your kid needs something, and like even if the doctors won't help, like you have to end up doing your own research until you do figure it out so that they can get the care they need and that they can be taken care of properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was one of the first things that we had to do, you know, as we decided we wanted to carry our baby, our first child. And my wife was feeling that call to birth our baby. And I was like, great, because I don't want to do that. It just wasn't in I never wanted to carry a child. And one of the first things we noticed, which is, I think all of us in this podcast will be like, oh yeah, like we were always token. We were always a token, you know, multiracial gay family in a parenting group, in the childbirth ed class, in the hospital tours, like all of those things. We always had to kind of adjust to these very white spaces, right? And we had to create our own community, um, and that is just like a full-time job. Like how are we going to protect our family? One of the first things I did was we're like, okay, we're going to get a doula. That's what we're going to do, and I think that was one of the first, I think, ways. You know, we had to constantly overcompensate to protect our family, and things like that. It went fine. Um, but yeah, I was always thinking of ways to figure out, okay, how can we, you know, and then like my last name, I'm not the only hyphenated name here in this group. Like it was really important to have our shared name together, like, right? Like it's extra important to like validate our experiences, and we wanted our children to know, you know, who and where they come from, right? And like and back then when we changed our names with the domestic partnership in California, like we had to go to the courthouse, you know.
Oh, we lost. I think we lost Vanessa on the audio.
Oh, she's gone. Oh no. Technology, man.
Yeah. So what resources have you found? I know Vanessa had spoken about like just creating your own community, but has there been any resources that you have found to help you within the parenting journey specific?
Sorry, kind of like what I think everyone in the group here is kind of the whole idea of the community thing. So again, before we knew we were actually going to start raising Caleb, we actually had built a really strong community. And one of the good things was because we were able to be 100% who we were, and I didn't have to lie about who he was. You know, it wasn't like I was telling people, yeah, he's my friend, or people would be like, oh, is that your brother? I'm like, I didn't have to say, oh, no, he's just a good friend of mine. I was able to say, no, you know, that's my fiance, that's my husband, that's my partner. That made it easy. So we were able to build a really solid group of genuine friends. I think it's a lot easier nowadays than it was before. So we actually had a really solid group of already married, a group of people who were already parents. So when we were like, oh, you know, we're going to be getting a little boy, they were more than excited for us. Like we actually, a couple of weeks after we got Caleb, some of our friends from our gym threw us a little like baby shower almost. And that was great because like,
we didn't know what they were going to do that for us.
We didn't know that they were going to do it. They did it, and it was just a way to make him feel welcome. You know, like they wanted him to know, like, we love you just as much as we love your daddies. And that's what it's really been, is a lot of our support has come from this close-knit group of people who aren't necessarily our blood. But it also goes back to, like, even our own families, like, they've been, like, for example, being invited to do this, it was from Betty, and Betty is actually my sister-in-law's cousin, and that type of networking I think has helped us in that way, where, you know, she's able to reach out and say, hey, you know, I know that you have your own experiences, do you mind sharing it? So I think that's a great resource, is just being able to be open with ourselves, and then overall having everybody just keep that open mind and not be so quick to judge the fact that there's two people of the same sex raising kids. I think that's been kind of our biggest resource. We got Caleb right when he started going to school.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our biggest topics in the beginning was how we wanted to handle school was in New Mexico. We hadn't heard the greatest things in regards to like the school system, so we were a little hesitant about the public school system. So we started exploring things like homeschooling. So one of the resources that we had was, you know, we kind of reached out. I forgot the name of the initial website that we went with for his initial schooling when we started sending him to school. But he was progressing at a quicker pace than the curriculum that they had. So halfway through the program, Damien decided to basically advance that by compiling his own curriculum that met the state's requirements. So he did that, and he was basically performing at the level of a first grader by the end of kindergarten, and then
even pre-K.
Yeah, and then by the end of first grade, he was already well into learning what most second graders learn. The pandemic, because it caused a bunch of online school and then kids having to go to distance learning, we actually found that they do a public homeschool program. And it's not just in New Mexico, it's in different states, but here in New Mexico, it's called K-12 Destinations. And it's New Mexico's, here in New Mexico, it's basically a public school type of homeschool where
it's free. It's an online public school. Starting at 6th grade, it turns into a career academy,
like a trade school.
Oh,
so it helps them, you know, figure out what they want to do and starts prepping them for that.
So up until 6th grade, though, they do basic, just general studies. It's 80% of it is done with your learning coach or your parent, and then 20% is done with an actual instructor or a teacher. And the curriculum is based on the student's progression. So it's not like it's one person the student has to go with what the class is doing. they'll test him into the program, and then they'll design the curriculum based on his progress, and then he'll take progress checks as he goes, and then they'll adjust based on how he's advancing through the program. We like that because we like to travel, so we're constantly visiting family. We're constantly trying to not be here, and this allows us to do that because aside from a couple of times, I think it's going to be a couple of times a week where he's going to have to log in and do some one-on-one discussion with the teacher. It's pretty much just homeschooling basics. I know some of the Damien's mom and grandmother were not completely on board with the homeschooling thing because the older mentality, like homeschool kind of made your child almost antisocial, lack of the social aspect of childhood. But I think they got to see we fill his time with social events. For example, when he's not going to school, Damien and I go to CrossFit every day. That's kind of like our fitness. And so our gym has a CrossFit Kids program.
And that counts as his physical education.
So twice a week he'll go and he'll work out, but he also gets to mingle with other kids. We have on the weekends, we'll hang out with even just adults. He does really great. You would think for a child who's one and only child and two just kind of always doing his own thing, he does great by himself, but when you put him in the setting with other kids, he does great with other kids as well.
He soars in any setting.
We try to promote that, and I think the good thing about the school, which I was absolutely blown away when Damien was telling me about it, was I was like, well, what do we need to do? And it's literally just, you need a computer and you need to be able to receive books from them. They'll send you the material, and if you have a hard time with a computer or some kind of network connection, they'll help you with that as well. So it's different things like that.
Or if you don't have a computer, they send you one.
Yeah. So I think the program itself is a national program. I think the intent, it got bigger with the whole COVID pandemic, but it's called K-12 Destinations, and I believe your state just has to have an affiliate in your state, and we happen to have one in New Mexico, so it's called K-12 Destinations. That's a resource that we are anxious to start. He starts that this next coming school year, so
in second grade,
July, August.
It'll start in August.
So it'll start in August. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy the things that popped up with technology and the pandemic. The pandemic sucked, but there's so many things that it proved that we can actually do. We're big on, I don't think he needs 8 hours of school a day. I think 2-3 hours max, and then from there you can just enforce the studies in your conversations and the things you do. And so that's why I think he has progressed so much, is because you integrate a little bit of the learning in the day into your normal workday, then becomes normal, as opposed to you're giving them an hour of math, they're bored 10 minutes into it, and now they're just forcing themselves to learn the rest of it. My job, I'm an instructor, but I teach 18-year-olds and older, and their attention span goes nowhere beyond 2 hours max. Right. So, and these are 18-year-olds, so I can't imagine the attention span of a 7-year-old. It's going to be a lot smaller. So I think constantly changing it up and just being able to do that is something that has worked really great for Caleb.
And throughout the day, every day, anything and everything can be a learning opportunity, and that's what we try to do for him. And so far, he's been soaring with the homeschooling. I think later on, hopefully, if he does well with the school, the online school that he will be attending now, I still want him to get some social aspect of schooling. So maybe middle school and high school, I really want him to try it out. At least try it out if he likes it. Yeah.
I think the trade aspect too of the school was something that we were like, that's awesome. It's rare that you see trade schools these days, especially it's free. You don't have to pay for it, so why not?
Exactly.
And I have to say, that's really good information. I didn't even hear that before. So, that's great information to know.
Awesome.
Very good information.
Yeah. Google helped us a lot.
Here we
I
go.
believe there is a K-12 here in Washington State too. Uncle Johnny, I don't know if you live in Washington State, but there's a K-12 program here too. I was actually looking into that for my own kids. And you brought up the pandemic and how it's kind of, well, it's changed so much of how we live our day-to-day lives, or how we've operated. And with school, I think I agree. I don't think they need to be in like 6 or 7 hours of straight school. Maybe just a few focused hours. And that also gives us the opportunity to teach them outside of what they're learning, you know, in a more regimented, escaping my mind, but learning plan. Like we can teach them about last year with the movement for Black Lives, and this month with Pride Month, you know, like there's just so much more out there that we can teach them and make them more rounded individuals and people in the world. So I think that's beautiful that you're really all taking charge of your child's education.
You know, and if you really even think about the education also, I mean, that thing with my kids were doing good. Thank God. They were doing really good. But the issue for me was I was more concerned about, you know, my kids being missing out on the socialization, you know, of all their friends and stuff. But then, like, you know, in the interim of it all, they were fine. You know, they were absolutely fine. But, you know, all these worrisome reasons for nothing, you know. And would I consider homeschooling now? I would. I mean, like, you know, Kevin's my little social butterfly who loves to bala out at everybody and, you know, and talk to everybody. So, you know, and I get it, and that's totally fine. And Kathleen's a typical 10-year-old. I call her a valley girl because she doesn't stop talking. She talks all the time. So, I mean, like, you know, trying to have these kids miss that. I don't want them to miss any of that. But, I mean, homeschooling, I mean, kudos to you for homeschooling your child, because is that a consideration for us? It is. I mean, it actually worked out well. Everyone did good except for, you know, Kathleen did okay. I mean, the boys did wonderful. But, you know, it's just, she's a social butterfly, and she just wants to bala out and talk girl stuff, and I get it. You know what I mean? So it's balance. It's balance.
And I think the homeschool, the whole like aspect of homeschool has just changed, just not just in the last year, but like since even when I was going to school, you know, like it's not as expensive. A lot of states allow you to actually create your own curriculum as long as it meets the state's requirements. Like New Mexico, it's pretty low. Like the homeschool, their teacher has to be a high school graduate minimum. Damien stays home with Caleb, and so that's good. We don't have to pay for childcare. So he's his primary teacher. And then the curriculum, you can get him online for like, I think for his first set of curriculum, we spent maybe $300 on all the entire like program. It came with all the books, like, and you have the option to do like online, or you can do it like physical. We chose for him to be more like into the books, like to actually be able to read books as opposed to reading everything online. So it wasn't too expensive, but then again, it gave us the ability to be like, hey, he's progressing faster than what this is doing. Right. So we're going to change it up as long as we meet the minimum for the state's requirements, which I think we were actually exceeding the minimum. Then you're good to go. And every year we just have to go onto the New Mexico website and just register him, like, and just tell him like, yep, he won't be attending physical school. He's going to be homeschooled, and that's it. Like, that's all we have to do here. So.
And it's pretty easy. It's all closer, right? I mean, I think it just keeps the family unit a lot closer. We know exactly what's going on with all our kids, which is important to me. It's important.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays with all the technology. Oh, I don't envy parents. I was like, it was bad when I was a kid. Like, you would get on the internet and they would never know. But like now, I'm like, they really, like, man. Like, they've all got their little cell phones and they're always glued to them. I'm like, oh my gosh.
But it's so great. All the parent, like the controls. Like, I control everything that Caleb touches. So, like, yeah, I'm like, no, you can't. And he can play games. He's a very smart kid, as with most kids, you know. And like a lot of kids these days, like, you know, you have 1-2-year-olds who understand how to like swipe on a phone. And I'm like, okay, well, that seems bad. It's actually, that's their generation though. Like, that's what they're going to be doing. You know, it's way different from us, so it's really hard to understand. We're putting ourselves in our parents' shoes where they're, you know, they're getting mad at us for doing something, and you're like, well, this is what I want to do. Now we're in those shoes, and we're like, well, I don't want him to be so invested in that, but he has to be able to understand and do technology. Otherwise, he's going to be kind of behind the curb. And so that's why it's like it's definitely a balance between, okay, we need to get him out, but we also need to give him the time to do the, you know. And so like one of the things we do with Caleb is there's so many apps out there that allow him to read books. So while he's eating breakfast, he actually reads on his iPad. So he'll read like a book, but it's on his iPad, and he'll go through about 3 books during breakfast. And so that's kind of how we encourage him to continue reading. And then a lot of times it's like, okay, you can get your time to play, but you have to go read 2 books. And then he'll actually go get physical books because we have a bunch of those, and he'll read those. So he's getting a balance of both. And I think it's just up to the parent to understand, like, there is that balance, like we mentioned, just don't deprive him too much of one thing, because in today's world, it's like he needs both. They need both.
I think that's a great lesson as far as Caleb being so invested in a device. I think a lesson there can be, you know, you don't have to be on your device. You can survive without your tablet. You can survive without your phone. We like to teach him, you know, what are the things that you need to survive in this world, and food, water, you know, shelter, and all that. And we teach him about, you know, all the places in the world that don't have everything that he has, and we try to instill in him, you know, what it is to be grateful, why we are grateful. And I think he does a really good job at that.
Yeah, he's very passionate, very loving, very he's very aware of other people's emotions. Like it's a little bit crazy. I remember my dad passed away earlier this year, and I was sitting there, and he came up to me and he just said, Daddy Joey, it's okay. Your dad's always with you. And I said, thank you, baby. How do you know? And he said, he lives with you in your memories. And I was just like, okay, done. Like tears, done. So
at the time he was 6.
Yeah, he was 6. He
Yeah,
was
yeah, he
going
was
to be 7. So
Wow.
yeah. So
Don't underestimate the kids. That's for sure.
yeah, they're oof.
We're definitely learning a lot from him as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
No geniuses.
They are.
So Vanessa, we were talking about some of the resources that people lean on, and so we're curious, like as a parent, what are some of the resources you lean on to help you?
Well, now we know we kind of phone it in. No, just kidding. No, our kids are old enough now that I feel like we've laid the foundation. You know, a lot of what some of the other guests have talked about, like, you want to play video games? Well, did you do your chores? You know, real basic stuff. We'll also do things like, you know, do a few laps around the house and then you can play more video games, that kind of thing. One local source that because I'm a full spectrum doula, so, and I make a point to serve in particular, you know, PI families and queer families. Like, they're my heart, they're me, you know. So I know Families of Color Seattle has a lot of great programming, a lot of parent groups. There's just a lot of those, and now it's all online, so it's a little bit more accessible for families. I think that's a big deal. Just like finding community, finding that one person you can, especially like immediate postpartum, or like when the kids are young, you just need someone to listen, you know. Another really good resource, Mia, I know a lot of folks know about this, is Perinatal Support Washington. They have a warm line, right? So you're a new parent, you know, just call and leave a message. Someone will call you back. And those things make a big difference, just having someone to talk to. One thing I do with some of my like immediate postpartum families is in those early days of parenting, everything's hard, right? You're doing everything you can, and it's like, why is the baby still crying? So like, I just have them send me their dark thoughts, right? So when it comes to like postpartum depression, anxiety for for all parents, right? Not just the gestational parents, but all parents, adoptive parents. If you can say those things out loud to someone, to a trusted person, it makes a huge difference. It's when we don't talk about it. It's when we don't normalize, these stressors that of course come. Parenting is the hardest job, and it's like, and then I do anything for them, we joke, like, I'm the bear, right? Like, I will cut you if you mess with my family. Claw your face off, right? Like, I do, and I do that for my families too, and they know that, the families in my care. So we fight extra hard. We have to. So those are the two big ones that I would suggest. Perinatal Support Washington, and Families of Color Seattle. Those two are really good resources. And my family is back from swimming, so I'm in Olympia right now for a training, and I thought, this could be a fun little trip. So I'm gonna pan around. Can you see, where are they? No, they're hiding. No, they're like, they're totally. Oh, there's my 10-year-old. and then the almost 8-year-old. In fact, his birthday's tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
Yes, it's gonna be a happy birthday, they said. And so I don't know if you all do this with your kids, but like, we always talk about their birth story, or like, coming home story, like, and we do it. Like, so for this one, I ended up having him. I birthed him. I carried him. So it was like yesterday. It was 2 days before he decided to be born. I said, okay, right now, 8 years ago, we got into the hospital, and you decided to take 2 days to come. So every year, thank you, Devram. Yeah, every year they know their birth story is coming. So it's another fun little family tradition we do.
Yeah, I've gotten that one. I don't like it so much.
Oh.
I'm like, you ripped me. Can't believe you did that to me. Where's my gift? It's your birthday, but like, where's my gift for giving birth? And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I call my mom every day. Thank you for birthing me. I know it wasn't easy, but I'm so glad I was born.
So this is one of my sons. This is Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Hey, Alex. And I mean, Vanessa, you mentioned parenting is hard as it is, and we're all trying to navigate and figure things out. And as parents, there's different layers that we have to navigate through. And as LGBTQ parents, I'm sure there's that added layer. What has helped you all? I mean, I think, thankfully, and I'm hoping this is true in our society, it's more normalized. Like, the being gay or being queer is a little more accepted, at least a lot more accepted than when I was growing up, and coming of age in the 90s, and beyond that. But like, how do I put this? Are there any specific challenges that you face? And if there are, how do you navigate that, especially as parents, or parenting your children, dealing with other children?
I think for us, I mean, speaking of, Kevin, who's going to high school, Kathleen, you want to come say hello?
Hello.
Hey.
My name is Kathleen.
Nice to meet you, Kathleen.
I just think for a lot of us, I mean, yeah, you always have, to me, these little layers. And I think for us, not only being gay, but being gay parents, but then of course, then you have that, it shouldn't even be a worry, but it is a worry of, now my kid's making all these friends, and how are you going to adjust telling them, this is my dad, and this is my dad, and having my son explain, you have two dads, and we've had that conversation with my boys. Are you all right? I'm fine. I mean, I'm lucky. I got two dads. Some people don't have even one dad. So you hear stuff like that, and of course, you have the moment of, okay, let me cry on your shoulder, and Dad, what are you crying for? And you're just grateful.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah, you're just grateful, because I mean that we're just kind of part of the onion layer that you just worried about. You know, you're just worried about, and all of a sudden, are you good? Dad, I'm fine. I'm fine. The kids know that, you know, I have a dad and I have a papa, and I'm proud, Dad. And you knuckle up, and are we good? We're good. You know, and all that worry again was for nothing. And I'm sure there are parents out there have issues or problems. I'm sure. I'm sure of it. But you know, we've got Kathleen, our little girl, who knows what's going to happen when she introduces all her little girlfriends to us. Are we good? Are we bad? Are we going to have problems? Who knows? But, you know, I just think being open and the kids saying, you know, what do I say? And it's a huge rule in my house. You have to be honest. You know, I mean, we've all been in the closet and we all have been not honest, you know, and I don't want my kids to grow up like that. So we've just been lucky. We've been really lucky. Sorry.
Absolutely. So like with Caleb, because his mom is Damien's first cousin, we keep in touch with, like, he speaks, he knows his mom. So one of the first lessons we taught him was, you don't have two dads, you have three dads and a mom, which just means you have more people to love you. And that's one instance, not long after we got him, he was basically playing with a little kid at the gym, and the little kid was like, why do you have two daddies? And he came back with that because we had talked about it to him. He was like, well, I have a mommy, but she just lives on Guam, and I have two daddies because, you know, more people to love me. And it made the little girl go to her mom and say, Mommy, I want two daddies. You know, like things like that, like little things that kids do. They don't mean to be offensive, or they don't mean to not ask, or to ask questions that are a little hard. But because they do it, it's like, it's innocent. So we actually had never met Caleb's dad until earlier this year. We made it a point to meet him, because one of our biggest things when we got Caleb was that all the drama that existed between his mom and his dad prior to us getting him, we didn't want that. Our rule to them was, if you want to be a part of Caleb's life, you have to understand we're doing what's best for him. So you're absolutely allowed to be in his life as long as you understand that. Don't bring any of that past drama or anything you have against each other into his life, because we don't want that. He doesn't need that.
The whole reason for him to live with us was to take him out of that toxic life in the first place. So that drama cannot exist nowhere near him. As long as they want to be in his life, and as long as he wants them in his life, then they're going to be in each other's lives.
Well, he's blessed to have you guys. You guys are doing a good job. You can tell.
Thank you. I think I think our parents, it was a little bit harder for them to understand, like, why you're reaching out to someone who didn't want to be part of Caleb's life, you know, but they don't understand, you know, like, people make mistakes, people change, you know. So that was one of the things his dad came to us with was, I made my mistake. The hardest thing I ever had to do was to let my son go. But we told him, like, we don't tell Caleb he only has two dads. We tell him he has three dads. And you're a part of his life as long as you want to be. As long as Caleb wants you in his life, you can be. And it was a big thing for us. Like, you know, having grown up, I was raised by my grandparents and my uncle by choice. My mom moved around a lot on our island, and I didn't want to move schools. So around the 5th grade, I was like, I don't want to move. I want to stay in one place. And so my uncle was like, okay, you can stay with me. And he happened to stay with my grandparents. So I absolutely understand, you know, the importance of wanting that, but also having your parents around. So that's what we talked about. And I was like, I think it's absolutely important that, you know, he stay in touch. What we don't do, though, is we don't let them interfere with his daily. Like, if they want to talk to him, we'll make the schedule on our own. But when you're ready, that's when we'll connect. It's not one of those things where it's like, hey, your mom wants to talk to you, she'll call tomorrow, and then she doesn't call. Then he's disappointed. We wait until it's like, you're ready, I'm ready, cool, we're going to call now. Hey, Caleb, come talk to mommy. Hey, Caleb, come talk to daddy. And that was our big thing, was we didn't want anything to disturb the normal. Like, whatever was his daily routine was what needed to be his daily routine. And that's, I think, one of the things.
At least for now, for him to learn structure.
Yeah, that was one of the things, was when we first got him, Caleb had a couple of issues, not issues, but like he hit a lot. When he got frustrated or angry, he would hit. And that was something I didn't like. We didn't like at all. So we had to break that right off the bat. And then he was also, we want him, like you mentioned earlier, we want him to be completely honest with us. Like, we don't have to be best friends, but you should never have to lie to me for anything. And he hasn't picked up on the trait of lying, but as he gets older, and he hangs around with kids, it's going to happen. But we always tell him, like, even if you know you're in trouble, one of the biggest things is to be honest, because the punishment may not be as severe, or the repercussions may not be as severe if you're just honest.
Or just be honest, because how are we going to help you if we don't know what's wrong?
Yeah,
Exactly.
If it's going to hurt our feelings, still tell us. There's nothing that you can do that will make us love you any less. And that's what we want to try to instill in him as he grows.
And my kids are really honest with me a lot of the times, and I know it's rough for them, but they're honest, and they're always like, "Are you mad?" And if it was something bad, and they're telling me the truth, am I mad? I'm not mad. Disappointed? Yeah, I am. But I'll get over that. But I mean, if you're gonna be honest with me, am I mad? No, I'm not mad at you. Disappointed? Absolutely. And we'll talk about it later. And we're over it. It's done.
Like, also reinforcing yes, I may be a little upset right now, but it doesn't change the fact that I still love you.
Yeah.
And I think I'm like enforcing that especially with Caleb, was he fears more disappointment than he does like facing the wall. Like, he would rather not disappoint you. So he's constantly like, "Oh no, like, does that mean that you're mad at me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I'm a little upset, but I still love you.
Mhm.
I'm always going to love you, even if you do something bad, but you need to be honest with us. You need to tell us what it is you did so we can fix it. We can work on it.
And we can learn from it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, he was playing a game yesterday, and he was like, "I keep dying, but it's okay because I make mistakes, and that's how you learn."
You learn from your mistakes.
There you go.
I think for our kids, we talk about identity a lot, how we carry these identities, and how we carry for them, they're multiracial, but they'll never pass for white, like, how do they carry that? And coming from, queer-led family, I think from the very beginning, they've just known who they are and where they come from, so that when those awkward conversations at school happened or with kids on the playground, it's not like, kids can be mean, but they're just like, "Well, yeah, I have two moms. They're
Man. Oh.
Darn. We're having a good time.
Oh.
It's such a good topic too, because identity. Like, Caleb he's his mom is half white, half Chamorro, and his dad is full Chamorro. So he actually looks
okay."
He looks white. So I don't think we've actually talked to him about how they'll tease him with, "Oh, you're a little white boy," or something like that. And I don't think it doesn't faze him any, but it's something we should talk to him about, like, how to handle being told you're not Pacific Islander because you don't look Pacific Islander. You know what I mean? And that's something I don't think I thought about, or something I don't know that, it may be an issue in the future, and I hope it's not, but I would like to talk to him about, like you mentioned, about identity. So absolutely, definitely something that I would like to talk to him about.
Yeah, because I'm half Samoan and half Palangi, but you see us, of course, we do love Polynesian, but my grandkids, and I wish my dad was alive, because my dad, the white boy over here, my dad's just like, "Well, I guess none of that white soaked into me," jokingly, of course. And now all of a sudden, all my grandkids, they're just my little Palangis, they're all my little put sunscreen galore on my kids because they're such fair skin, but they still got the Oriental eyes, but it's our kids. They skip a generation, I guess, right?
Vanessa, you guys know, would you like to continue?
Please.
I'm so sorry. It's the hotel. I don't know.
No, it's
yeah. Yeah. you know, I grew up, you know, like we came here in the mid 80s. You know, they stopped speaking our home language to me, you know, my first language, Tagalog. And there was a lot of erasure that happened growing up, you know, like I had to do certain things to fit in and not stand out. And with our kids, we're doing the exact opposite. You know, like I speak Tagalog as much as I can at home. You know, I teach them the little phrases. We talk about, you know, just how our people came to be, you know, like both sides. So my wife's side, you know, they're from Ireland. They were a colonized people. You know, they know all those stories. They carry all those stories of erasure. And they know that every day we show up in the world as our family unapologetically as an act of resistance, you know? And I think we've done an okay job doing that, you know? My kids understand those things. And I'm one of those parents that try to turn everything into a teaching moment, and bless them because they they put up with it, you know. But that's our way, right? That's our indigenous way. We teach with stories, and they love hearing those stories, no matter how often I tell them. But yeah, identity is huge, and then we have that extra layer, you know, as queer people. And so just to be clear, I wanted to say something about gender. We haven't mentioned that. You know, I employ that a lot in my work, like degendering birth, right? And I wanted to tell you all a story. It was a couple of years ago, and this is the world that our kids are in. My 10-year-old, he was 8 then, he came home and he was like, "Mommy, I have something to tell you." I was like, "Okay, I'm ready." And he's like, "Well, I have a friend at school and they go by they." I was like, "That's awesome." You know, and I was like, they trusted you with that information. You know, I'm like, that means you're a good friend, that they trusted you with that, because they might not be ready to come out. Oh, here's Leo. They might not be ready to come out as they in the whole class, right? And so we had that lesson. But yeah, I did want to say that that's what our kids are growing, the world that our kids are growing up in, and it makes me really happy.
I love hearing that. It makes me happy too, and hopeful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for taking time out of your Wednesday evening to join us and talk story with us.
Thank you. It was nice meeting everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. Oh, can I do my quick plug in for our new org?
Yes.
So, Cammie Goldhammer, Cassandra Miles, and Vanessa Lovejoy-Guerin, we used to be Daybreak Star doulas, full spectrum Indigenous doulas. We've all created our new org called Hummingbird Indigenous Doulas. So, wanted to put out a plug for that. We're still doing the same work we were doing before, just under a new name. So, but yeah,
How can we find you? Is it,
so all our social media is the same. So we just changed the name. So if you look on our Facebook, you'll see how we changed our logo, and Cassandra made a nice little announcement on our Instagram page. So find us in those same ways.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Uncle Johnny. Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
all.
so
So
much.
nice sharing this space with you.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
To my niece Lika, I love you, sweetheart.